Hey guys, welcome back. 1776 or bust. So today's the day that I'm going to be following up and I think finally closing the door on the Walther CCP. It's kind of a disappointing thing because I know a lot of people wanted me to say that this gun was going to be a great gun. Obviously the previous review wasn't that great. And I had high hopes. I'll be honest with you. I thought that with some of the upgrades they did with the precision on the machining on the slide, the dovetail cuts for Glock sights, supposedly any 1917 sights would fit. I was really hopeful that this gun would be what I thought it was going to be when I initially bought it. But unfortunately, not so much the case. So I'm going to start out with some of the positives because there's only a couple, to be honest with you, at least that I found. And again, I will just throw in there that there are going to be some people who are going to be extremely upset with me again, because I really just found this gun to be very, very un-Walther-like. So first off, positives. I think that overall their machining on the slide has definitely been a big improvement. One of the things that I noticed when I took the gun out of the box was that it did feel like a real gun this time. I described it initially as a toy gun. This time, the machining on the slide just seemed a little bit better. It actually just felt a little bit more like an actual firearm as opposed to maybe, the typical Umarex, airsoft gun that they have. But other than that, I mean, there's not a lot else to say about it. I mean, the slide feels a little bit sturdier. It feels like it's a little bit more of a thicker metal that's used this time around. But other than that, it doesn't really add up to saving the day for this particular firearm. The other improvement were the Glock sights. Although they claim that these will fit any 19 and 17 Glock sights, I don't know where they're getting that from, to be honest with you. I actually had to switch on and off. I had an initial iDot Pro on here. I didn't really like the way it fit because it was still a little bit loose no matter how much I actually screwed the screw into it. So I actually wound up doing just a regular Ameriglow sight, which was a Spartan sight. And you can see that, again, hopefully this will come in the camera, but you can see it's moving around. I mean, I couldn't get this thing to stay in. It had Loctite on it. I'm not sure because of all the heat. Maybe it generated so much heat inside that the Loctite, liquefied again and eventually just stopped doing its job. But nonetheless, I mean, to me, 50 something rounds and you have a sight that's moving around, that's a big no-no in my opinion. The other thing I noticed at the end, probably around 40 or so rounds into the gun, the rear sight also, and I'll be able to just, let's see if I can do this right now. As you guys can see, the rear sight just comes right off. Initially, the rear sight went on fairly firm, but it did not stay on there. And again, this is after roughly 58-ish rounds. I did not make it to 60 rounds, I can tell you that right now. But I would say anywhere from 53 to 58 rounds was where I finished the day on this gun, because after that, I just threw it in my bag and I said, I'm done with this gun. The heat production on here is pretty intense. I would say you really start feeling a good amount of heat in the frame of the gun, probably around... I'd say probably around maybe 40 or so rounds. That's when I really felt that the heat was building up to sort of an uncomfortable level, especially in this area around here. It's kind of a shame. And the reason why I say that is because I really wanted to think that this was going to be a leap and bound improvement on the original one. I'm not really sure what Walther was trying to do with this gun. I mean, the PPS M2 is a better gun than this. Could they have designed, maybe a little bit differently, maybe not a gas blowback? They could have done that. But to me, even the M2 Plus is not going to save this gun. I know that there are some people out there who put in the review after I did it, a lot of hate saying that it's the most reliable gun they've ever owned or whatever. I don't see how that's possible unless you've never owned another firearm. And this might be the only one you've owned, or maybe you've owned, a piece of crap that's worse than this. But to be honest with you, I don't know how anybody could say this is a super reliable handgun. I shot my SDS Imports gun, $350. That gun was ridiculous. I mean, it was an excellent, excellent gun. Had every bell and whistle you'd want on it, and it doesn't have the Walther name, yet this gun does. And this gun just, in my opinion, is a huge failure. One of the things that I think would be concerning about this gun for me is that when you look at the gun, I mean, ergonomics are good. The trigger is not that bad. After reassessing the trigger, I mean, the trigger was actually not that bad. So I'm going to give them that too. So the thickness of the slide is improved. The trigger is pretty decent. I mean, once you start shooting it, you don't really notice a lot of the grittiness. The recoil wasn't bad either. I mean, it didn't feel the way it felt when I first shot it years ago. I really do think they made an improvement on the rigidity of the structure of this gun, but it just doesn't save the day for it. I had a few failure to feeds at about round 30 or so. When I would put the slide back in battery, the slide would you'd actually feel some resistance with the round going into the chamber. That's a big problem too, because again, that's going to deal with the reliability. And for me, I had 5 failure to feeds. To me, that's not good. 53 rounds, 55, whatever it was, and you're having 5, failure to feeds. That's unacceptable in my opinion. And I think what really concerns me isn't necessarily that it's just a really bad gun. It's just what concerns me is that people who buy this gun are usually people who are maybe going to have weaker grips, maybe elderly people, women, and including anybody who has an injury. And to be honest with you, I just can't see this being a super reliable handgun. This is almost the kind of gun that you would use as a last resort or until other help arrives. But I'll be honest with you, the first 8 rounds, it went through, no problem. Second 8 rounds went through, no problem. But then after I hit that 3rd magazine, that's when problems started to begin. And that's only 16 rounds into the game. So again, I only shot 50 plus rounds through this. After that, I shut it down because it just wasn't worth it. And I'm not going to waste the ammo trying to prove that this gun is something that it's not. The gun is not reliable. The gun, to me, does not meet the needs of someone who's going to carry this daily. Sure, it's comfortable. Sure, it's slim and it's small, but it's just not reliable. And there's a lot of things about this gun that just don't make sense to me. The sights, absolutely ridiculous. I mean, there's no way. This came right out of a Glock, no problems whatsoever. On this gun, falls out. The front sight, again, moving. I mean, there's just a slew of weirdness to this gun. And honestly, it's a shame because Walther makes great guns. The P99 AS, awesome gun. PPQ, awesome gun. PDP, awesome gun. PPS M2, awesome gun. Everybody who's owned those guns would say that they're fantastic guns. But I'm sorry, guys, if you're going to tell me that this gun is so good, I would suggest maybe going out and looking at other guns because this gun just doesn't do it in any way, shape, or form. So hopefully you guys understand where I'm coming from with this. Like I said, I tried to be objective about it. Again, this gun was sent to me, but I am certainly not going to lie to you and say, go out and buy one of these. I've seen other reviewers say that these guns are super reliable, super great. No, they're not. This is just not a good gun. And I'm sorry, I'm not going to lie about it and say that it is. So leave those comments down below. Hopefully you got something from the video. And just so you're aware, try to keep those comments somewhat positive and somewhat decent. But again, it's not a knock against Walther. It's just a knock against the CCP. Have a great night. Stay safe. And as always, freedom is never free.